First time I go to record one of these in a year, and the second I press record, I get a car that rides by. That's about right. That's about right. So, for those of you who have listened to these previous episodes, welcome back. I haven't done one of these in a little over a year. That's the reality. Now, for those of you who are new, I will explain in a quick manner, as quick as I can, what this is. You'll see the title is A Story of Life. I may have titled it something else. I don't know. That's the point. I never really know what's coming out here. What I'm doing is I'm just walking outside in my yard. I've got about 3 acres. I've got an acre fenced in. And in between March and July of 2024, I lost both of my dogs and my long-term relationship. And so I started coming out here at night and just talking about what I'd learned, what I'd needed to learn, the experiences that I had had. And the last one of these I did was January, I believe, of 2025. And it's now March of 2026. Yeah, March? Yeah, it's March. And so I never really know what's going to come out in these things. Usually I'm just kind of like talking to myself. But I needed to set the stage here since I hadn't done one in a year and there may be more than 2 new people listening. And so when you last heard from me in January of last year, I felt like I was coming pretty close to being healed from everything that had happened, and I felt good, and I wasn't quite looking for a relationship yet, but I think that subject was on the horizon. And well, as luck would have it, maybe a month after the last one, maybe in February 7th, I think, actually, is the date. I did end up meeting someone, and she's living with me now, and she brought a dog with her. Actually, I should say that the dog brought the girlfriend. So Leia is a 5-year-old pit mix, and so you'll hear her. She's right here with me. You'll hear her walking around rustling in the leaves. And so we have a good time, and we'll get into all of that. Now, why didn't I do one for a year? Like I said, at the end of the last one, I felt like I was getting close to being healed. You know, losing 2 dogs in a relationship in a 4-month period, it was unpleasant, to say the least. And what I've learned is, what I've learned in this year is how well the human mind is at convincing yourself that you're healed from something, and creating things for you to do, to keep your mind busy, to keep your body busy, but mainly to keep your mind busy and off of the reality of just not being healed. And, when the relationship ended, I did the most typical thing you could do. I looked in the mirror, didn't like what I saw, started heading to the gym every day. And so I'd be at the gym every day. I'd be out here almost every night. And I'd be walking 10, 15 miles a night. And now I'm walking a little bit slower because I wouldn't say I injured my knee, but let's just say my right knee. It's either severe tendonitis or arthritis. It's one of the two. But since I don't have insurance, I just deal with it. As long as I get to the gym and do my specific exercises, it's okay. But for about a 6-month period, I was walking, I don't know, at least 10 miles a night, five nights a week. Sometimes it'd be more like 15 miles. And so I didn't blow out my knee, but I burned it out. I'm 54. So now when I walk, I feel it. I wasn't feeling it then. And of course, the interesting thing is I didn't really even feel that the knee was sore until I stopped walking, which of course coincided with me stopping to do, I stopped doing these videos and started looking for a relationship. Didn't take me very long, but that's me. I know what I want. I know what I'm looking for, and I'm not a serial dater. I'm just looking for peace. Just looking for peace. You know what I mean? Not a peace, but just peace. And so, what I've learned more than anything in this year is that how busy I could keep my mind to block out the fact that I just did not heal properly from any of the things that had happened. So my first dog died in mid-March, 24, but I still had my St. Bernard. And so I couldn't really mourn Ellie. She was a Shar-Pei Shepherd. I couldn't really mourn her properly because I had to be strong for Fluffy, the St. Bernard. And then by about mid-May, it was obvious that Fluffy was checking out and he was dying. And although he was 11, it was a surprise because he was completely, perfectly healthy when Ellie passed. And so I never really mourned Ellie properly. And then by the time Fluffy passed, I had spent 6 weeks, 2 months, sleeping downstairs with him, only getting an hour or two of sleep a night. And so within a few weeks, my relationship had ended. And so I never really got to properly process everything that went on with Fluffy at the same time. And you know, by that time, I was trying to still process the end of the relationship, see if the relationship was salvageable. And I said in multiple videos, I said, I come out here and cry at night. I don't know what I'm crying over. It could be Ellie, it could be Fluffy, it could be relationship. It could be what I saw in the mirror. And that pattern continued for quite some time. And then right around the time that I made this last video in January of 25, I felt like, okay, I'm feeling healed now. I'm feeling healed enough now to seek out a new relationship. And I found the relationship and I worked hard and solidified it. And she moved in and everything is fine. It's very peaceful. You know, we don't fight. There's no fighting. It's not perfect. No relationship is perfect, but we don't fight, which is the biggest thing I wanted to avoid. And so what ended up happening for me is that once she had moved in and the relationship kind of settled into a normal, we're accustomed to living together, it settled into just a normal everyday groove. And I had a little bit more mental energy to focus on things other than getting myself back into shape and all of that. For a couple of months, I was far more depressed than I'd ever been, and certainly far more depressed than I had been when the original things happened with the dogs dying and the old relationship ending, because it just kind of all hit me at once, like settling into the new relationship in my new life, and Leia included. When I finally got to the point where I was just settled in and comfortable with it, that's when I realized how bad off I was in terms of missing my other dogs, missing the 3 dogs, because I had actually had a third dog, but Sonia passed in 2020, so there was a little bit more of a time frame in there. But it just kind of all hit me at once in January and February especially. And I got into a funk that I've never been in. Like I've been in some rough spots before, and a couple of times when I was in a rough spot, Fluffy is what got me through. You know, my dogs have always been the ones that have kind of, when I need that unshakable connection, that it's not possible to 100% count on another human being to be that connection. The dog, on the other hand, you can always count on them. And so I went through a bad 6 weeks, probably the last 2 weeks of January, and all of February was just awful for me. I did not want to, I hate to say it, I didn't want to live. Now, it wasn't the sense of I want to die, but I came to the conclusion multiple times that I feel like I've lived a full life. I'm 54 years old, and I don't feel like I missed anything. I have done so much in my life and been so many different things and achieved my goals. Every time I've really set out to do something, I've achieved the goal. And, when I think back about, my everything from being a kid to my teenage years, to my 20s, 30s, 40s, and I think about, well, what haven't I done? I've had money, I've been broke, I raised my kids, I've had all the dogs, I ended up with the home I wanted and the location I wanted. I've always had the jobs that I wanted to do, being self-employed. I got to this point where it was like this juxtaposition of not just being depressed over losing my dogs, but just feeling like, well, now what? Now what? What am I would search myself and try to find motivation. What is the next thing that I can do that's going to bring me that I can do, I can work for? What's the goal that I can set that's going to motivate me? And to be honest with you, I still didn't really find that. But what ended up happening was I got myself in such a state, physically and emotionally, that I ended up having some heart issues, some cardiac issues, and that kind of woke me up a little bit. It kind of woke me up a little bit in the sense of okay, so I obviously don't really want to die. And it gave me a little bit of something to focus on in terms of gaining my health back and getting back into the shape that I want to be in. Now, that's a short-term thing. At 54, that's a short-term thing in terms of, getting into a shape where I feel decent enough and just being able to come out here and do my walking like I would want to. I'm breathing a little bit heavier now than I would have in the past. It's noticeable, but those are minor little things. And so, but the cardiac things that did happen to me, the episodes that I did have, definitely got me okay, let's get up, right? Let's get up. We can't, if we're not really wanting to check out. It's almost like God said, all right, if you're not sure you want to live, here what it's going to feel like. Yeah, maybe if we're going to kill you. And I was like, well, okay, we're going to not do that. We'll not die. But the truth of it is I still haven't really found, for decades, my motivation was I wanted to be able to work for myself and have the time to spend with my dogs and have the big house by the river and not have to work for somebody else and be able to be there for the dogs in their older days when they pay. And I achieved all of it. All of it. Every single part of it that I wanted to achieve, I got it. And then when they died, it's kind of okay, well, So now what? And so I started working on myself, and I thought I was healed. And then I went into the relationship, and I spent all the energy and time developing that and getting everything set up. And then once I had all of that set up, or, my girlfriend had moved in, and I'm outside with Leia, and we're forming a good bond and all of that. Once I had time to think about, okay, so now what am I doing? Like, I can't just recreate exactly what I did before with my other dogs. I can't just recreate something with Leia. It has to become its own thing. And so, yeah, motivation seriously became an issue. And it's not that it's gone. It's just right now I've allowed myself to get so physically out of shape. And if you saw me, you'd be like, "What are you talking about, man? You're still in good shape." Yeah, but not for my standards. And so I've kind of used it as an excuse to get out of the chair. Let's go. Let's get moving again. Let's start doing things like this, like coming out and recording these videos. And my hope is that as spring comes, because it was a brutal winter. So my hope is that as spring comes and summer comes and things warm up, if I can get myself into a really good groove with the things that I want to do, by the time next winter hits, I won't be in such a predicament like I was this year. But it was just a massive lesson, and still is, in the waves of healing. Something shifted in me a couple of weeks ago, maybe not quite 2 weeks ago, 10 days. Something shifted in me in terms of how I feel about losing the other dogs and having this new life. It's hard to put it into words, but it's a feeling. It's not that I miss them any less. It's just that I think I'm finally learning to channel a little bit of that sadness, a little bit of that energy. I'm kind of channeling that into the things that I'm doing with Leia, or taking care of myself. Like I'm using that energy. That energy is still there, but I'm at least now using it instead of having it just make me sit, and just sit there and just rot. Because that's kind of where I was at, certainly for February. Now, in my defense, we did have a giant snow ice storm, and for 3 solid weeks, there was nothing but 6 to 10 inches of solid ice as far as the eye could see. So not being able to just get outside and do like normal walking, because you were going to fall on your ass walking on the ice, like, it had an effect. It certainly played a role. It was kind of like, well, I can't even go outside, so I may as well just sit here. So it just kind of contributed to the whole malaise I was in. Malaise, yeah. Depression, we'll just use that word. But I guess the point to it all is that you just never know when you're really healed. And I'm sure I've got more waves coming. You know what I mean? Like, now as I become more invested in Leia, it has started to dawn on me that, okay, so, a dog's life is finite, right? And so at some point I'm going to have to go through that whole process again. Now, hopefully it can be a little bit easier for her than it was on Fluffy. My Ellie was in good health. She was 13 and a half. She was in good health. She had a stroke and she was gone that night, basically. So she didn't really have a whole long, drawn out thing. And so, and so here I am. And another thing that I'm learning is, and this is a little bit more specific to my relationship, not necessarily just my romantic relationship, but with people in general. You could say that in the past, I have been played for a fool, played for a sucker. And it was never really because I wasn't suspicious or somewhat aware of what might have been going on or might happen, but it was more of a disregard for my own personal safety. I would give a lot longer than I should have, despite it not being reciprocated. There's Lele. I would give a lot longer than I should have, despite it being not reciprocated. And I would just do it to my own detriment. I'd wear it like a cross. Well, this is what I got to do. This is the choice I made, etc. And I'm not allowing myself to be that way anymore. I don't have the ability to be that way anymore. And in one aspect, it feels a little unfair to some around me because my patience level, when I think things are not being reciprocated evenly, my patience level I wouldn't call it non-existent, but it's seriously limited, and it's not really their fault. But at the same time, I'm able to be aware of how other people's energy seriously affects me more than I thought it did. Because generally speaking, on the outside, when I'm with people, whether it's a relationship or out with a friend or my son or whoever it is, on the outside, it would appear to people that I'm running the show. But the reality of things is that it's, generally speaking, I will allow, or at least in the past, have allowed other people's energy and my fear of their energy changing and turning run the show. And so as this new relationship has continued to develop, I've recognized the points where I'm recognizing the points where I'm different now. And because I'm aware my natural instinct still is to act a certain way that's self-detrimental. And I'm finding that I'm having to very purposefully stop myself from those behaviors and say, no, I'm not doing that again. And that can be unfair to some people because, it's not their fault that I've had these previous experiences, but it's something that I've recognized and can't continue. And so as things have moved forward, I've just recognized these things in myself and not allowed myself to become as overstretched as I definitely used to. Before, I kind of felt like, it was impossible to stretch me too thin. And now I kind of have a little bit of a different attitude about things because, with what I went through, with that short period of time, the 2 dogs and the relationship, the way I feel is that absent the death of a family member, not my parents, because we all expect our parents to die at some point, right? But I think that absent the death of a child, right, I don't know if something can hurt me as much again the way that situation hurt. Like, I don't know, and I'm not tempting. I'm not asking for it. It's a genuine question. It's not an accusation or a challenge. It's more of a feeling of like, I don't think I can get hurt that much again. Like, that's not the right way to word it. I don't think I could be that blindsided again, that led to hurt the way it did. Ellie was a shock. She was healthy. She had a stroke. She's gone. When she died, Fluffy was 11, but you would have never convinced me he didn't at least have another couple of years left. He was fine. He could still jump into the van by himself and jump out of the van, and we go to the beach and we go to the river, and he was himself, and then he was just gone. And so while I was dealing with all of that shock, circumstances being what they were, you normally think anybody expects someone you've been with for 6 or 7 years to leave a couple weeks after your dog has died, but that's what happened. And so all three of those events stacked upon each other. It was just too much in the sense of not just what had happened, but it was kind of, I'm looking around in my life like, what is happening? Like everything, my entire life just got ripped up. And so the point is I don't know. I can't think of a circumstance right now that would affect me the same way. Absent if something happened to one of my kids. My parents, I expect them to pass at some point. Leia, she's here with us now, but I know at some point, hopefully in the long distant future, but I know that day will come. And I feel like I'll be more prepared for it when it does happen, because I wasn't really nearly as prepared as I should have been, right? When the other two went. And so from that space where I feel like, well, I can't get hurt that bad again. And again, it's not a challenge. I'm not saying it in a cocky way. It's just, I certainly hope there's nothing that could come that would hurt me that bad again. Again, absent, obviously, if one of your kids died, that's a whole different thing. But it gives me, in my dealings now, whether it be in a relationship, work, with my friends, it just gives me, honestly, a significantly stronger sense of peace. Because while I care deeply about all of the things in my life, I also have the attitude of like, well, hey, look, if this should happen, it ain't gonna be worse than it was when Fluffy died. Or if this should happen, it ain't gonna be worse than what I just went through. And so it gives me a space to operate more as my true self when I'm not really worried about the consequences of actions or words, because I'm not saying it gives me a feeling of invincibility, but if you've walked on fire, if your feet are, calloused from walking on fire for, a year, and then somebody says, hey man, you gotta walk on this gravel driveway to get the mail, right? But you gotta do it barefoot. You're like, yeah, whatever. I've been walking on hot coals for a year. You think this gravel driveway is gonna stop me? That's kind of how it feels. It's hard to put it into words, because I don't want it to appear as though it's like a disregard for my life now. It's just, this life that I have now is something that's been brought to me for probably mainly healing purposes. And that's not to say I didn't want the relationship or I didn't want Leia, but it wasn't something that I should back that up. The relationship was definitely something that I seeked out. I definitely did that. It never crossed my mind when I was looking for the relationship that she would have a dog. It never, for whatever reason, it just never crossed my mind that my next person would have a dog. And kind of sounds stupid, right? You know what I mean? Like I should have taken that into consideration. But it didn't. And so Leia's here. And, I see now, the role that she's played in this last year, especially. I've had a rough time. I've had some good moments, and I've had some rough times. And, I'll come out here and walk for hours sometimes. And she's so calm and so peaceful. Like the other dogs, especially Fluffy. If I would walk my circle 2 or 3 times, he would start whining at me because he wanted attention. And I'm not talking about just in his last months. I'm talking about from the time he was 4 or 5 years old. Like I could only get so much time walking around the yard before I would have to stop, go over to him, give him belly rubs, play the stick and all of that. It's fine, obviously. I loved it. But with Leia, she's so quiet and so peaceful that I can come out here and I can be in my own energy without interruption. And then just every once in a while, because I have a trail in the yard, I have a beaten path trail in the yard. It's in a figure 8. And she goes off and she does her own thing because we got all sorts of wood piles and all sorts of stuff for her to putz around in. And then every once in a while, she'll just come up behind me and walk the path with me a little bit, or she'll stop on the path ahead of me. And I'll just give her a little pet and she'll wag her tail and then she's off running, doing her other thing. It's like she's just coming over every once in a while and saying, I'm here, Dad, I'm here. It's all cool, right? Because the situation for her, as somebody put it, when I first got her, or she first came to me, and I showed the picture on Twitter, one of my friends who knows me for a long time says that dog doesn't know it yet, but she just hit the doggy lottery. And because now before my girlfriend moved in here, she had a job and she'd work, and so Leia she was renting a room, and so Leia would be in that room while my girlfriend was at work for, 7, 8, sometimes 9 hours. Well, definitely 8, probably closer to 9 hours by the time she drove. And so it's not that she had a bad life, but now she's got an acre that's fenced in and there's neighbors with dogs, and she comes out here and barks at the screech owls she chases the squirrels and the bunnies, and there's deer across the street, and she just loves it. And so it's like a whole new life for her, for sure. And so when we're in the house, if I move, she's looking at me like, we're going outside? Where are we going? We're going outside. Don't go outside without me. And so it's been an interesting thing, because in a way we both, like, it wasn't just that she was brought to me. You know what I mean? It's like, in a way, I was brought to her because, obviously her quality of life now is going to be significantly different. And I tried her at the river a couple of times last year. She wasn't all that interested, but I had Donna, that's my girlfriend. I had Donna with me. I had Kyle with me. And so I think this year, I bought her a harness. And once the water's warm enough, I'm just going to take her out there, just me and her. Now that she's a lot more comfortable with me, and this is home and all of that, I think I'm just going to put her in the van and we'll just go and we'll just start doing the thing. And I think she's going to love it. So we'll see how that goes. Sonia, my lab, the first couple times I brought her to the water, she was skittish about it too. She'll go in, Leia will go in, but she wasn't interested in going in more than, 4 inches of water. But usually what I do is I get my waders on, tie a rope to the waders and attach it to the dog, and then we go walking. And then she's attached to me, so she can kind of go where she wants, but she also has to come where I'm walking. So I think it'll work out. Hopefully it'll work out. I wonder, she's small enough. She's only 60 pounds. I do wonder if I could maybe train her to get in the kayak with me. That's possible. And I better get her a doggy life vest before I try that. And she might do it. I'm pretty sure I could get her in the kayak, and then if we just push off and we're in the kayak, well, there she. You hear that, Lele? We're gonna put you in the kayak. I gotta get her a life jacket. If I brought her out there without a life jacket in the kayak, I don't think Mommy would be too pleased. It was Donna, Leia was Donna's dog before she moved here, and she had her for several years. So it's all around a different situation. But like I said, it's very peaceful. There's really no disagreements or arguments or anything. So I don't know how long I've been talking. I didn't have much, well, I wouldn't say I didn't have much new to report, but it was just, I just wanted to check in. I missed doing these. When I was doing them before, usually, it helped me process a lot of different situations. There was so much that went on. The whole way things went down. I don't really need to get into the details all over again, but it seemed like even after my ex left, there was at least 3 months where it was still some kind of trauma every day, because she left most of her stuff here and I had to pack it up, and there were still business considerations and communication about taxes and all sorts of stuff just about every day. And so that really, made things rough, because she'd want to talk about business and I would be emotional about other things, and then she'd get emotional about things and I'd be like, you're the one that left. And it was a mess. It was an absolute mess. And so that's when I started doing these. And now I obviously, it's weird because even though, February, I was in a bad way. I was very self-aware of the depression. It was like a traffic stop. Like you roll the stop sign, the cop pulls you over, you're like, all right, let's get this done and over with. And if you just don't do anything stupid, he's going to go on his way, you're going to pay your fine and whatever. I rolled the stop sign. It's kind of how it felt. Like I knew I was in the worst depression I probably ever had been in, but I also knew I was just waiting it out. And I didn't even fight it. Like I wasn't fighting it. I wasn't sitting there beating myself up, get out of the chair, go do some work. I just let myself be in that space, knowing that something's going to come. Something's going to come to knock me out of this. Now, did I think it was going to be, for all intents and purposes, a heart attack? No. I didn't see that. But there was a period. Well, I had a couple really bad episodes, but there was a period of about, almost 2 weeks where like constant heart palpitations and lightheadedness, dizziness, couldn't really get up and do a whole lot. It was a bad thing. And now I earned it. Okay. I earned it. Now I've got some normal health issues. Age. I got Lyme disease. I don't have good cardiac genes. My body produces cholesterol inside the arteries. So I've got that going on. And then when the depression hit and I noticed I was kind of getting out of shape, I was too damn tired, too lazy, too depressed to get to the gym. I did what was the dumbest thing I could do, but I did it anyway because that's what we do when we're humans, right? And so I decided I was going to cut back on carbs and start eating more proteins and stuff. But my ass said, you know what? I'm just going to eat all of these bacon and eggs until it either tells me that I shouldn't eat the bacon and eggs, or maybe I can eat the bacon and eggs. And I ate a lot of bacon and eggs. And when I say a lot of bacon and eggs, I mean I would eat a half a pack of bacon and 4 eggs in a serving. And sometimes I do that twice in one day, and that's all I was eating. On top of some waffles every once in a while. Like every third or fourth day, I was having my normal carbs. But the point is that I said, well, you know, in the past when I've eaten this stuff, I would start getting little heart palpitations, and I would know, okay, I can't eat this stuff. But that's not what happened this time. See, what happened this time was I started eating that stuff, and I didn't get any warning signs at all. And then I got one big one. And that's when I was like, well, shit. I can't have my bacon and eggs anymore. Because who doesn't want bacon and eggs? Right? Who doesn't want bacon and eggs? So I had to stop buying the bacon. That sucked. Oh, and I was eating ham too. I knew there was something else I was leaving out. I was having bacon, eggs, and big chunks of ham in the eggs. Like sometimes I'd have the half a pack of bacon and eggs for breakfast, and a 8-ounce piece of ham with eggs, 4 eggs for dinner. So I kind of earned the heart issues in those moments. But like I said, in the past when I did that, you know, I'd start getting just a little flutter every once in a while, and I'd be like, all right, I can't do it. And so I figured, you know, it had been, I don't know, 3 years since I had really eaten like that. And I take a lot of protocols, we'll call it, to keep my arteries clean. And so I said, well, let's see what I can do here. Now, of course, you know, maybe only have it like once a week as a special thing, dumbass. But no, I was depressed. And so that's all I was eating. and I'd walk into the room, and Donna would look at my plate of food. She'd be like, I hate you. Because she's not supposed to eat that stuff too, obviously. And I was like, I'm eating it. You know what I mean? And yeah, it almost killed me. So once I stopped eating the bacon and the ham and the eggs, it took about another week or so for the heart palpitations and all of that crap to go away. And now my cardio is not great like it was when I was doing all that walking. You can hear it. I'm breathing. But I'm okay. I'm not going to die, but I can't do stupid shit. I can't eat what I really want, which is bacon. And that's what my grandfather did. He died when he was 86 years old. His heart, it just stopped beating. And, but the last several years of his life after my grandmother died, all he ate was bacon, eggs, beer, and pound cake and ice cream. That was it. That's not even an exaggeration. That's all he did. It's like, this is what I want to eat, and when I die, I die. And he was bowling the week he died. And when he went to the hospital, you know, they knew his heart was going. He was actually scheduled to get a pacemaker on Monday. And Sunday, he just sat in the hospital with my dad. And he just laid there in the bed, and his heart just slowed down and slowed down and slowed down, and then just stopped. And that was it. There was no suffering. There was nothing. His heart just slowed down and stopped. So, and he ate that stuff for like at least the last, let me see. My grandmother died when I was 16, and my grandfather died when I was 27? Yeah. Now, he ate that way until he moved in with my parents. He ate that garbage until he moved in with my parents, and I was about 25, 26. And then, of course, my mother fed him good food and all of that, although she'd still make us bacon and eggs and stuff for him because they figured, what the hell, he's 86, let him eat what he wants. So I earned the cardiac thing between the Lyme disease and my family history and the depression with the food and all of that. And so when that happened, when I realized I can't eat what I want, damn it, and I realized, okay, I've kind of really let my health go. This is bad now. This is bad. I had to cancel one of my live streams because I couldn't even talk. Because if I was talking the way I am now, being animated into a mic, I was getting dizzy and heart palpitations. So it's like, okay, this has gone too far. It has gone too far. And so that's kind of what popped me out of the depression and got me to where I am now. And I'm still just as clueless. And what I mean by clueless is, like I said, I had the goal. House by the river, self-employed, time with the dogs. Like it's not a small goal. To be self-employed and be like, I want to not have to work for somebody else, have plenty of time and plenty of money to spend all the time I want with my dogs, and have a big, huge house that's right by the river so I can take my dogs to the water and play. And I pulled it off. And so now, like whatever the new version of that is, I don't have a clue. Not even close. Like I still have the house and I'm self-employed. Like I could recreate that with Leia. And it's not that I don't want to or that I won't, but it's not a new goal. It's just a continuation, And so I feel like I'm missing something. I just kind of feel like there's something else. There's something I'm not seeing or something that I'm waiting to arrive to kind of, for me to be like, that is the thing. And so, being in that space, coming off of the depression, I'm just kind of like recording this video. I'm trying to do things that will get my mind going, get my energy going, and to kind of just maybe discover it by accident. Now, the things that I've had as goals in my life previously, most of those things have come to me. I was a massage therapist. That was suggested to me. I've sold on eBay since 1999. I overheard a conversation about eBay. Most of these stories are in the previous episodes of this, by the way. And even Fluffy, St. Bernard. Long story short that I'm not going to delve into right now, but we had just lost another dog. And my ex-wife kept telling me, hey, there's people in Delaware that got St. Bernard puppy. They got St. Bernard puppies. They got St. Bernard. And about the third or fourth time, after about 3 weeks of her harassing me, because I was like, I don't want another dog right now. I'm good. We already had 2. We had Ellie and Sonia. After the third or fourth time, I was like, fine, we'll go. Because I knew what was going to happen. And, yeah, that was totally meant to be. So the point being is that it was brought to me, right? It was brought to me. Now the goal in terms of having the house by the river, and the time that was brought to me as well. When my oldest son is going to be 27 in a couple of days, when he was 1, I worked for like 2 days as an assistant butcher at this little grocery store. And this is a true story. This is what motivated me to become self-employed. The guy that was supposed to train me comes in my first morning of work, and he's crying, and he's an absolute mess. I said, what's wrong? He says, my dog had a stroke, and he's laying outside in this doghouse, but I got to work. I can't afford to take the day off My wife's got to work, so the dog is just laying there, and he's probably going to be dead by the time I get home from work before I could get him to the vet. And I was just like, not towards him, but just towards life in general. I was like, oh my God, I don't want to ever be put in this position where his man's dog is dying, and he can't afford to miss work to take him to the vet, even to just ease his suffering. And so sure enough, he came to work the next morning, and when he had gotten home from work the day before, the dog had passed by himself outside in his doghouse. And at that moment, I was like, that is never going to be me. And I made it a point. I made that point to myself, between me and God and the universe and whoever was listening, that I was going to do whatever I had to do, deal with whatever I had to deal with, put up with whatever I had to put up with. But I knew that at that moment, I wanted to have my big house by the river, so I had time, and self-employed, so that when my dogs, as they got older and when their time came, there would never be any question that I would be there right with them the whole way. And so again, that was brought to me. And so, Leia was brought to me, right? And so now I'm just kind of waiting. I'm just kind of waiting for that next thing. I can't think my way out of this. I can't think my way through this. Oh, I got a million ideas. A baseball channel, and a gaming channel, and fishing channel. I mean, I got a million ideas. But if any of them moved me to a certain extent, I would have already done them. So yeah, that's been this year. That's been this year. Thinking I was healed, figuring out that I was not healed, and now I'm waiting now. Like, I'm never going to heal from missing my dogs. That's not going to happen. I always like to use the phrase, some things you don't get over them, you just have to go around them. I'm not paralyzed anymore with missing them, but I still can't talk about it. I was able, while I was in that depression, I was able for the first time to go watch some of the older videos with them. But I'm not there. And I don't know when I will be. But what I've learned this year for sure is that and this sounds stupid, but I mean, no emotion is permanent. And I don't just mean emotion, but just like the healing. It's stages. And unfortunately, my natural healing process was definitely interrupted with the way that my old relationship ended. And it's the same. I can't think my way out of this. Like even eating that bad food that caused the cardiac issues was kind of brought to me because, well, that's what my grandfather did, right? That's what my grandfather did. So we'll see what gets brought next. That's it. We'll see what comes next. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's coming. It's got to be coming. It's got to be coming. I waited long enough. Give me the stick. Give me that stick. Ow! Ow! I got it. Okay, you can. Meanwhile, they're both very content now.